how I'm supposed to actually execute. Um, since I've been getting into meditation and doing visualizations, my ability to put on the canvas that's in my head has gotten a lot better, but still it's nowhere near what I need to be able to have to get the quality that I need. Although it would help if I practice more, but I have very little time because I work 40 plus hours a week at a different job, as well as have a relationship. So I try to do everything all at once, and time being linear as far in our perception, it's very hard to do everything all at once. Got to do everything in succession. But so far what I've been learning, I've been getting a lot into philosophy. I have a subscription to Scribd so I listen to audiobooks almost all day while I'm at work, because my job is relatively mindless. Every once in a while I'm just going to push pause and then talk to a manager for a few seconds, get them to fuck off, and then pop back on. And so I've been listening to lots of different psychology and philosophy books. Recently I've been getting into B.F. Skinner's behavioral psychology, which is fascinating. It's like a 17-hour book, but I would highly recommend it if you want to delve into the why we do what we do, what stimulus creates a reaction that, or reflex as Pavlov, conditioned reflex as Pavlov called it, if you want to get into why we do that. But it's really made me think about the media that I like consuming. I love consuming social media. It's fun. It hits that dopamine. It's so sweet. It's good memes. But the thing is, after learning more about behavioral psychology, it's really hit me that social media is kind of like a giant Skinner's box. You know, you put in and I understand that it's not anything nefarious. You know, it's not like they're trying to they're trying to control you. It's algorithmic outputs based on human behavior, so that way they can improve the program, so that way people that are doing advertisement, like people like me that advertise on social media for their art or whatever product they have, while they're doing that, they need to be able to know what people want, and what stimulates them, what's going to make them buy. And so social media has a very, very interesting widespread application for that, because it collects data on human behavior, what you like, what you react to, what you heart react, what you angry react, what posts, how long you spend on it, and then it feeds it back into the algorithm to show you more of what you already like, something that's similar, like your personality is similar to or has the same output and reaction as these people like these certain associated things. It'll start showing you those certain associated things, and it'll give you certain stimulus that'll reinforce it with the reward of, you make a good post, you get shown to a lot of people, you get a bunch of thumbs up, and so that's just how it works. But it's very interesting to see how social media is based on psychology and experimenting on human behavior. So that's something that's been kind of weirding me out, although I still use it because I need to at this point. I can't get my art bought and shown if no one can see it. So that's the whole point of doing videos. It's the whole point of posting on social media, and that's what we do with social media. We want attention because it reinforces certain behaviors that we have. We post something that we're doing. It's like, hey man, I'm at this bar, or I'm at I'm doing this with so and so. And when we get a bunch of likes, that reinforces that behavior. So it's like, oh, I want to do that again, so that way I can get more likes, because as humans, we naturally crave attention and approval of our behavior, because that's just how we're wired. As far as I know, I'm still learning a lot about psychology. But I think it's interesting, to say the least, to see how social media has shaped the way we think in the past, 15 years. It's really taken off, especially Facebook, Twitter. A lot of people, I don't know if they realize that it's I'm not going to call it psychological manipulation, but it is psychologically influencing to a point. Because if you're constantly, like I was for years, and now I just check social media every so often. I post things that I do. I don't share posts anymore. Unless it's, something that's done by a friend, like some artwork, something original. I do have a meme page, but that's different. It shapes how we behave. And over the past 15 years, I think it's probably made most social impact of anything. TV and the news, no one trusts that anymore. People barely trusted it back in the day. And now people are even more distrusting of it. And also people distrust Facebook, and because we have fact checkers and all that stuff. Because anybody can write anything. Stick it up on Facebook. And you don't know if it's like, is this from an actual source? Is this someone bullshitting? You have no idea. So that's the way people don't really, they're wary of it now. Now that we've had a bunch of things come out about disinformation and misinformation. A lot come from different groups to fit their agenda, so that way they can try to influence people to behave one way or another, or to brainwash them into their own views. So it's going to be interesting what it's going to be like for the next 50 years. I think it's at a certain point, social media is going to be regulated, because right now it's kind of the Wild West, and it's getting more and more regulated, but in a very, I don't know how to put it. The censure is very limited, and since it is based on algorithms, because they can't have everyone checking on everyone all the time, it's limited to what, it takes a lot of things out of context. I've had my own comments, filtered out or straight up, striked through Facebook just because I quoted someone else that said like the word bitch or asshole, and then I put it in quotes, but even then, it's still going to be taken out because it's insulting or whatever. Which, it's fine. I don't really need to be commenting. I don't care. It doesn't change anyone's opinion. Lots of arguing online, which I find fascinating. And it's really people just shouting what they were going to say before at someone. No one's really listening to other people's points as much as I already have a preconceived belief system. Instead of listening to your belief system and figuring out how you view the world and maybe come to an agreement or disagreement, it's more like I have a preconceived speech that I am going to blurt out into the world at everyone's face, and then if you disagree with it, oh my God, you are the worst person in the world, and I'm just going to berate you with insults. And I don't think this is sustainable. It's very, very unhealthy. Very, very unhealthy. And a lot of people that I know, they still do it. Like people on the left, people on the right, people in the middle. They all think that what they think is the way it should be that way for everyone. And that just because something makes sense to them, so therefore it should make sense to everyone, because obviously everyone is like me. Everyone thinks like me, which is the farthest thing from the truth. We all completely have different reality tunnels that we are all focused in on based on our, imprinting when we were young. The culture that we were brought up in, the beliefs that we had, drilled into us from our parents, from our peers, the bullying that some people went through during, their teenage years. It all shapes how we behave and how we think. Yet, we fail to recognize it. But also there is very little education going around about understanding oneself and human behavior. Very few people are interested too. So that's another reason. But eventually, I'm very hopeful that education will get better. It either has to, or we will suffer the consequences of having ultimate power with ultimate ignorance and the same person, as we have had plenty of times before. But now anyone will be able to force someone else to their own system, belief system, just because they have the technology and the power to do it. There is an increase in technology and power without an increase of wisdom or understanding at this point of history. And that's going to have to change, or else we'll destroy ourselves. But whether that happens in this timeline or not, doesn't really matter. You have to just do what you can, and don't worry about everybody else. You can't control what everybody else does. I mean, you can influence them, you can manipulate them, but even then, as soon as you're gone, that behavior eventually becomes extinct through you not stimulating them constantly. And once this body dies, and then that generation dies, a whole new generation is brought up that will influence the world for the next, few thousand generations. So you can't control everything. You can't control people. You can't control the way that chaos manifests itself through our world. But you can control how you react. To an extent. You have to recognize your own programming, your own behaviors and why you do them. You have to do a lot of introspection to think about what influenced you when you were young, or not even young. It could have been like 4 weeks ago. You did something new and you had a certain reaction to it. Either it gave you an adverse reaction or a positive reaction. But from then on, you may view it with that specific thing. You'll expect, I went to this party with so-and-so and it was horrible. And so now you associate that person with horrible parties. So you will not want to go to parties with that person. But they might have just had an off day. If you try the new experience again, you might find that it actually was a great time with them. They were just having an off day, and so were you. But you imprinted the association of horrible party, horrible time with so-and-so. Excuse me. And so from then on, that shapes your behavior of, I don't want to hang out with them. No, they suck. And you know what? Sometimes they do suck. Sometimes your impressions are right, but not always. And I have no idea how I got onto this tangent. This was supposed to be talking about my week. Oh yeah, well, most of it's been listening to B.F. Skinner's Psychology of Behavior audiobook on script. You should, oh my god. Okay, so if you guys have a job that very little contact with people, you can just pop an earbud in, you're like listening to music or podcasts, I highly recommend, instead of listening to music or podcasts are fine, music is fine, it's a great way to spend the time. But instead, start doing what I've called meta-programming. You listen to an audiobook of a subject that you want to have just kind of drilled into your mind. You don't necessarily have to pay attention to it constantly. It's the whole point of what I call meta-programming is to have it subliminally reach your mind. So you just have something going on in the background all the time, and it'll seep into your unconscious. And that will shape your behavior without you having to think about it. You'll automatically be able to be like, oh, I know this, blah, 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 blah. You won't know why. That's the problem is you won't know why you know the information, though. That's the biggest problem. And you won't be able to recall things. Like, you won't be able to quote things with complete accuracy. You'll only remember bits and pieces. But you will get the overall gist of the book. So you have to be very careful what you listen to. Which is with everything, all environment, you have to be very careful what environment you choose because you are molded by the container you put yourself in. We are like water. If you put yourself into a bowl, you're going to be shaped like a bowl. Pour yourself into a square container, you're going to be shaped like a square container. Okay, I'll qualify that. We're not as easily shaped as water, But you get the analogy. Whatever environment we put ourselves in, unless we have the wherewithal to recognize when our behaviors have changed, or that our behaviors are changing and or we're being influenced, you will easily be influenced by whatever environment you're in. But listen to an audiobook. Get some books on whatever subject that you want to dive into. I recommend staying away from fiction. I wouldn't say it's a waste of time, but it's a waste of your mental space. Because the entire time that you could be programming yourself with knowledge that will help you in life, you are using for entertainment. Entertainment's great, but all it does is just reinforces it's a dopamine thing. We're just constantly reinforcing the same dopamine, and then you'll remember stuff that's really useless in life. Some novels are great, some fiction is great, and I believe it's good to have entertainment. Sometimes you need to relax the mind, but there's too much relaxation of the mind in our modern society. We're constantly pumping ourselves full of TV, YouTube, social media, and useless information that helps us go nowhere in life. But if you can educate yourself relatively cheaply, like Scribd is like $13. That's why I prefer Scribd over Audible. Audible, you have to buy every fucking audiobook, but you own it. But with Scribd, it's like Spotify. You pay $12 a month, and you can listen to unlimited audiobooks. Relatively, I listened to so many that they kind of limited me a little bit, but then I got that taken off. But you can listen to like pretty much unlimited audiobooks that are ones that you have to pay for, as well as ones from LibriVox. So freaking great thing. And they also have PDFs as well as books. It's just amazing. But if you do that and you educate yourself subconsciously, you'll find yourself feeling more intelligent in conversations. You'll be able to understand what people are talking about around you that are smarter than you. And you'll be able to recognize when people are spouting bullshit versus facts. It's very tenuous whether there is such a thing as a fact. But regardless, you'll be able to discern the bullshit from the good stuff. And when you see an article on Facebook or some shit, or like Twitter, that has some wild claim, you'll be like, that's not right. That's not what has been shown, what is shown from the sources. You'll be able to go through, you'll be able to, do your own fact checking without having to have some secondary source. I firmly believe in engaging with the primary source. As much as it would be great to be able to experiment, do all the physics and all that shit yourself, but it's time consuming. You have to go to college, you have to go through so many things just to be able to do that. But it's better to listen to the scientist that wrote the book than to listen to someone who's writing an article who read a book that someone wrote about the book, about tertiary and quaternary sources. Because it's like telephone. One person says something, and into the ear of the next person. That person says into the ear of the next person. That person says into the ear of the next person. By the time you go all the way down the line, it's a completely different message. Engage with the primary source. But definitely be aware that not everything online and not everything in books is true. Because a lot of things are proven false. There's a lot of science being done right now that we'll not know about. That's disproving things that we hold most dear that we won't know about until 10 years later, because they have to do experiments over time to test things. Good science is done over a long period of time. You can't just be like, one experiment, yes, this is how it is. It's not good science. But I digress. Get Scribd. Get some education in you. If you can. If you can't, on your way to work, listen to an audiobook. Just a little bit every day. Knowledge is power. But you also have to have wisdom to direct that power into the car. You can turn the car on, have the gas pumping, have that knowledge going, all that power under the hood. But you have to learn how to push the gas as well as steer, so that way you don't crash the car or just sit there and waste gas. But anyways, I think that's good enough for this week. And it has very little to do with my week, but it's all the things that I've been thinking about. Appreciate you guys for listening. Appreciate you guys for sticking with. And I'd appreciate it if you could hit a like, as well as subscribe, because I'm going to be doing this every week now. And tell me what you think. Tell me what your thoughts are on social media. Put it in the comments. I'd like to see what your views are on the future of the world as regards to this Skinner's box we hold in our hands. See y'all later.